everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Pure Joy Podcast. And if you're joining us on YouTube, welcome. I'm here today with Caitlin Louise. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi.
For those of you who don't know, we work together, and we've been working together for over 5 years with Pure Joy Planet. And today we really wanted to do a podcast on kind of like how we're navigating these times. It's the middle of, it's the end of summer, it's the end of August almost, 2020. You know, starting in March, there was lockdowns, there's quarantines, there's all these questions going on, there's political waters, there's just so many things. So we thought what we would do, and this is not like a self-help or like we're not here to tell you how to be or what to do, but we found that every time I post something about like how I'm navigating or just like finding that peace within, it seems to help a lot of people. So I said to Caitlin, she's here visiting from Arizona, and I said, let's just do something and create this, like talk about like what we're doing and like how we're navigating, and maybe if it helps you, great. And we can learn some stuff from each other too as we're talking about it.
Yeah, and we're all experiencing different levels of this lockdown and new reality, so they call it. So things like anxiety are coming up, just higher sensitivity to other people and your surroundings. So there's a lot of different emotions that people are feeling, and we just want to share with you what we've learned through navigating those too, because we're only human. We're all experiencing to some degree something. Things are different.
And what I'm learning from my friends, and like someone will tell me something that they've experienced, and I'm like, wow, that is great, and that started working for me. And it, like when I notice my nervous system relax because of something someone shares with me or of a new practice, I'm like, I wonder how many other people are just, and I know how many other people, because we're out on the trails and we're out in cars and we're out at stores, and we know kind of like we bump up against what people are feeling. Now granted, Caitlin and I are both lucky because I live in a small town and you live in Tucson, but she's kind of more out in the sticks. And so we're not experiencing as much intensity. So if you live in LA or New York or a big city, like our hearts really do go out to you, and we know that like we are not speaking from a place of living in a big city, but we can share what some people have said worked for them, that they've heard from us, and or what we've experienced. So the first one kind of that comes up a lot is this feeling of uneasiness, anxiety, and especially during this time when people are quarantined and self-isolating, no one's telling them to quarantine, but like they're overeating, or they're just doing habits that aren't working for them, or they've stopped healthy habits, like they've stopped exercising as much, or you know, just all the stuff that happens. And it's easy to kind of get into that space. And I know we've both done it during this time. I mean, I call it black holing. I'll just kind of go into my black hole, and I know I have work I need to get done, or I have certain things, and I just like I stop responding to people's invites, and I just don't want to do anything. So the sensitivity and the anxiety.
I would say too, it's a bit of a lack of control. Like when we feel out of control, we tend to try and control things that we can control, which is what we consume, what we watch, like all of these things that we can control. We tend to go to our self-sabotage habits, and I know that's happened for me too. When I can't go see friends, I can't do the events that we're going to do, we've canceled the retreats, we've done all this, it's like everything is out of my control. So usually, what's the thing? We turn to sugary foods, alcohol, smoking, maybe drugs.
And TV. Like, and the biggest thing, and this is something I feel so blessed to not be doing, but the news, it becomes an addiction. And it's feeding, like, so of the people that I know that watch the news, it's like, yes, it's good to be informed and to know things, but when you just feel like all you're doing is feeding your own fear, and you just keep coming up with new things, or I should speak for myself, like, if I'm watching something, or even people are sending me things and I keep watching these YouTube videos or keep watching these things, and I'm like, oh my God, like I wake up in the morning just stressed out about it. So to me, I'm like, if a food doesn't work for me, like if when I drink wine I feel anxiety, or I get hot flashes, or I just wake up feeling groggy, I'm like, I'm not doing that behavior anymore. Like I'm pretty clear on that. But some people don't really realize with external input, like news and things like that, you are consuming it, but you're not putting it in your mouth, so you're like, it's fine. How debilitating that can be, and I know for a lot of people. So like for me and you both, I think like I'm just not watching the news. I don't watch it at all. I actually don't have TV. I'll watch things on Netflix. I'll watch things on YouTube. So people will send me videos, but I get to choose in every moment what I want to watch and what I want to consume, and that's my one choice. Like I do get to choose what it is I'm actually putting into my brain.
And if you live with family members who have things on that you don't necessarily want to have in your psyche, like maybe having your podcast on when they're watching that, or maybe going to another room or going for a walk. Like, there are ways that you can get away from that without making other people feel wrong for needing to watch the news or consume Facebook or be on those all the time.
Yeah, and I feel like kind of both of us are really like privileged in a way. Like, I live alone, and I have had roommates during this time, and that's been, you know, good for the most part, but of course there's always things that you come up against. But, you know, and then you live with your guy, and I know there's times where it's a little harder than others. So like, those are tools that you use, right? Like, you put your headphones in, or go in another room, because we can't really control other people.
Right.
And that's where I think I've gotten into trouble, and I see people getting in trouble, is when they think, I'm going to tell them how they should be because I'm not watching the news, they shouldn't watch the news. Or if I think Fox News is important to watch, I'm telling them they should watch Fox News. And then it just can turn into kind of like this vicious cycle of everybody trying to shame and wrong each other. And that's really like, I don't really want to talk about like what news station you're watching or everything. It's just kind of, I want to talk about like how I noticed when I started internally shaming people for their behaviors, whether it was just being more aggressive on the roads. Like, that's a good example for me. Like, I noticed, you know, when all this started, especially with Black Lives Matter, like, I was at a march and there was really aggressive people that were anti-march driving by, and I almost got hit by this truck that had a big Confederate flag and a big US flag, and it was a big, loud, gigantic truck. And literally, if I would have stepped out 1 second sooner, I would have been toast. And I got so angry, and like, my whole heart was beating, and I just started shaming and hating those people. Like, and then I noticed that the more I thought about it, the worse it got. So I've really switched in my heart, and I feel like I'm doing this most of the time, is having compassion. Like, I don't know where they're at. I don't know if they got paid to do that job. They were so desperate for work that someone paid them to go do that. Or I just don't know, like, how their living situation is or anything about them, or like, maybe they've been being abused. I don't know. So it's hard for me to judge them from a place of not knowing them. So I just really kind of keep going back to the place of, wow, their life must be really hard, or, oh, like, just going into my own heart. And that's all I can really do, because that's the only place the truth lies for me, is in my own heart.
Sending people compassion.
Yeah.
And compassion for yourself. Like, this isn't easy. We've never been here before in this lifetime, at least most of us. So having compassion for your feelings when anger comes up, not shaming yourself for feeling these feelings, noticing. It's like becoming more self-aware too, knowing what's yours and what isn't. Like, that anger probably was also feeding from their anger, trying to change their situation too.
Right.
So we're all kind of like feeding off of each other, and it can become this really big mess, like energy,
black tornado kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think that point you were just making of like self-awareness, and that's the thing, both of you and I. So one thing that I've cultivated for a long time, way before this started, was meditation, morning meditation. And for me now, it's like breath. It's like, I don't start my day, even if it's 5 minutes, but usually it's 20 minutes, but I don't start my day without sitting. I have a little altar in my bedroom, and that's the first thing I do before I go and make my coffee or do anything. I sit at that, I light a candle, and I just set my intentions for the day. And that's made a huge difference. And the other thing is, like, kind of, I was talking to someone the other day about the difference between prayer and meditation. And a lot of people think, oh, meditation, I'm religious, like, we don't meditate. Well, all meditation is listening. So think about it this way. Praying is talking and asking, and meditating is listening. So you can do both. Like, what I do is I send, prayers out for all suffering children, all people that are suffering on the planet right now. Please, like, send out light, and I'll create a light vortex around my body, and like, send light to anyone suffering, anyone needing extra love, anyone needing healing. You can never go wrong with that. Like, start with yourself. Like, please fill me with light and help me to be a better person and help me to stop judging. So we just take a moment, and then after that, like, I just sit in silence. Or I'll put on, like, what's called binaural beats, or you can find things on YouTube that are just, like, it'll be like, 432 hertz, like the hertz that you listen to, it's like a binaural sound, and it kind of calms your whole nervous system. It puts you into theta. And theta is just a meditation state. So we've got beta, which is normal, like me and Caitlin right now talking, and then we've got alpha is the next one, and that's when you're just sitting and you're like, oh, I feel peaceful, like, and you're kind of more focused. And theta is when you're just really noticing just the breath, like, I'm just listening to my breath, or I'm just noticing my body, like, oh, I feel something in my stomach. That's more theta. So any way you want to look at it, just going within and going internally, I think for me has been the best thing of all.
And I would say too, like gratitude, because maybe you can't get there for like sending light to the planet. You really just need to focus on you. Focus on your gratitudes. Like, what is it that you can find in your life? And everyone can find something that they're grateful for. I know I cannot be angry or upset when I'm in gratitude, like writing 5 things down that I'm grateful for. And they can be simple, like I get a warm cup of tea this morning, or like I'm going to have a really great meal with my family tonight. Like, they can be really simple things, but just focusing on the things that are working for you right now too is really helpful.
Yeah, you know, one of my biggest things I'm always, like every day, my grateful thing is I wake up and I have my window blinds so that when I wake up I can see out the window, and there's this big tree, and now it's changing with the seasons as fall's coming. And the first thing I do is just look at that tree and think, oh my gosh, I love my room. I love this view. No matter where you are, it doesn't, you know, you don't have to think about your whole life. Like, you don't have to love your whole life. But then what I do, the other thing I do, and I do this when I get in bed, but I also do it in the morning, is I love my pillow. Oh, I'm so cozy. Like, just it doesn't have to be big things. And like you said, oh, there's coffee waiting downstairs for me. I'm going to go down and make coffee. Like, tiny little things in life. Or like, I don't know, the sun shining. And that's a huge way to take the focus off the negativity or what's not working.
And it's free and it's easy, and if you've lost your footing at all, this is the quickest way to get yourself grounded. And on that note, like getting yourself grounded, like going outside barefoot, that's another way. If you feel like you've lost your footing, you feel like everything around you is in chaos, or you know, people are experiencing anxiety around you, like just make sure to get grounded and get back to you and your energy.
Yeah, and if you don't, like, so when I lived in Arizona, it was hard to get grounded because in the summer, because the ground was so hot outside. So like, it's not always easy, but like, so I have a lawn, so one of my rituals is I go out every morning and I check all the plants. I say hello to everybody, and even though my sprinklers go on, I give everybody a little extra shot of water in the greenhouse. But the other thing is, if you don't, I'm just going to show you this crystal here. Like, you don't have to have a huge crystal like this, but a crystal, like you could hold rock, you could hold earth. This is earth. Like, you could have a tiny little crystal. You could pick up a piece of rock from the ground, bring it into your house, and like, that's your grounding. Anything that belongs on the earth is grounding. Even these plants, like, you could just play with your house plants. Like, oh, I'm going to repot my plants today. Touching dirt. So like, if you're thinking I live on a 3rd floor apartment, which a lot of people do, like, just get some potted plants or plant a tomato plant in your backyard, and make sure you just get this habit of like sticking your hands in, poke your hand in it to touch if it needs water. You know, like, just it's the little things, right?
And they're so simple. I mean, it sounds so simple to say it. We're like, what are our techniques to get, because we've lost our footing multiple times through this, and it always just comes back to like self-awareness, meditation, grounding.
Yeah, for me, going within. But I do have to say, so since this has all happened, I definitely have pendulum swung. Like, oh my God, now this is happening. I'm over on this side, like, you know, politically, or just with masks, like, wear them, don't wear them. All like back and forth, and then I hear new information and I'm like, oh my God, now I got this information. So I'm not immune to it, and I know you're not either. Definitely. And so we all are. But what the message my friend Kate gave me that I keep going back to, what I love, because she wrote this whole poem about it, and it's really worked for me since I heard it, which was way back in June, and this has been my mantra: stay in your lane. It's not my job to tell people to wear a mask or not wear a mask. It's not my job to tell people who to vote for. It's not my job to decide what someone should eat or not eat. It's not my job to tell people to be vegan or not vegan. I can't do anything about that. I can share from my heart what my experience is, but when I go back into my heart, and so I call it my heart portal, and so my meditation helps with that, because I just go in and I ask my guides, my higher self, they're everywhere. I have angels everywhere. I can feel them now. I've gotten better at tuning in. Guides everywhere. I just say, show me what I should do. Like, take me to my heart. And this beating heart is our lifeline. And remember that, because no one can tell you what your truth is. Like, I was talking to you today about, like, sometimes I just want to know, like, what is the truth? And you said,
there are multiple truths.
And I'm like, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, look how many religions there are on the planet. Look how many different ways of being there are.
Exactly.
And all I know is I found my way to this place in this city that I live in. And the food that I eat seems to really work for me. And the meditation that I do really seems to work for me. And going into my heart portal and checking in with me is been the biggest fresh breath of air and the most like soothing of my nervous system. I mean, and wouldn't you rather be around me when my nervous system is soothed because I feel I'm staying in my lane, I'm doing the right thing, I'm still teaching people to eat better, and I'm helping people in the best way I can. But I don't know how to be an arsenal. I don't know how to be that person that's out there screaming at people to change their lives. Like, that's not my, I feel that's someone's job for sure. It's just not my job. Like, it's not my job to be the president of the United States either. Like, I know what my role is just because I've tuned in. And what they keep telling me, what I keep telling myself is keep teaching people how to improve their health through better diet, through meditation, through eating better, through exercise, through movement, all those things. So I know how to do that. So that's my lane. And I'm in that lane. If I'm driving in traffic, I'm not going to be swerving into someone else's lane. They're going to be pissed at me, and they're going to honk at me and flip me off. Like, I don't belong in other people's lanes. So if that could help anybody, like help you, just staying, like, what is my lane? And I think that's the biggest thing to figure out. Like, what is your dharma? Like, what gives you bliss?
Yeah. And even on that note, like, in our coaching programs and when we're coaching people on eating, like, we ultimately say, like, you have to find it out for yourself. Like, everyone is so unique, and staying in your lane piece is so important for all pieces
all
of
aspects
life.
of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, if I'm coaching someone to eat keto and they're like, well, I'm allergic to avocado and coconut, I'm like, well, we're going to have to find some alternatives for you. Like, I'm not just going to say, well, tough, you need to eat that. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So everybody's got their thing that works for them, and some people have faster metabolisms and slower metabolisms. So I'm not going to tell someone with a super fast metabolism not to eat any carbs. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So we need to know ourselves first, and before we start telling other people what to do.
Right, and the stay in your lane piece too reminds me, like, don't feel guilty that you're not doing all of the things. Like, if you know your lane and you know what you're supposed to be doing, you don't have to be distracted by all the other things and guilting and shaming yourself for, am I not doing enough? Should I be out at that other thing? Should I be posting this thing on Facebook? Like, how do I serve? It's like, well, if you go back to knowing what your purpose is, then just let go of the rest. Let go of the guilt and shame.
I love Paul Selig, and he's written a lot of books. And the first book that he's written is called, I think it's called I Am Word. And then he's written a bunch of other books, like the Book of Knowing and Truth. And one of the books, and in multiple books, and this is a mantra I say to myself a lot, I know who I am, I know what I am, I know how I serve. Now, you could be listening and going, well, what if you don't know who you are and what you are and how you serve? When you say that, I'm getting the chills, you come online. It brings your higher self online. It's like you're declaring it. It doesn't mean you have to know in this moment how you serve. It's just like, and I'm getting multiple chills. It's just like it's a saying that you get yourself on track. Like, it's kind of like when you sing a song or you tone to get yourself like in a good vibratory field. I know who I am. I know what I am. I know how I serve. And then you can add the words in truth. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. And then the last three words, and these are really important, is I am free, I am free, I am free. And that frees you from any earthly slavery of commitments that we've made, contracts that we've made in other lives, or just however we've made contracts with people without even knowing it. It frees you from the bonds of even of marriage and of whatever contracts you've made with your children, and like it can lighten your load of, and maybe that other person in your life suddenly starts shifting because you feel free. They feel like suddenly, like, I mean, who wants to be around someone who's just constantly, you shouldn't leave that dish there, and you should do this and do that, and I don't like the way you're eating, and like that makes them upset, and then it's a vicious cycle.
What you resist persists.
Yeah, and so like it starts, and so I think what I am getting, and like I'm teaching this to myself, and I'm sharing with you guys, that when I go out of my field and start putting on other people what I think how they should act according to kind of what I'm doing, like I'm missing the mark. So it's just going back into the self. And this kind of, like, we get so many questions about when people start self-sabotaging. They're like, oh, it's so hard for me to quit drinking wine. I drink it every night and I really want to stop. Or I can't stop smoking pot and I really want to stop. Or, like every night I eat cookies and I really know I don't want to do it and they don't serve me. And so it kind of comes down to what we teach kind of in our keto courses is self-check-in. Like, in any of those moments, like, what part of me is needing to be filled with this thing? And it could be entity energy. It could be like something that's not even yours. Like, we get so many energies coming at us. And when I say the word entity, I don't mean like some demon. And it could be that, but it could just be entity energy of other people's auric fields, and we pick up on their stuff, and it's not ours. I mean, like, you used the example of someone yelling at you on Facebook. That's not you. That's not your stuff. If they're mad about something you posted or didn't post, oh, God forbid you shouldn't post something you're supposed to, that's not your stuff. That's not for you. You could check in and go, oh, is this something I feel bad about? Like, why am I so triggered by this? And if I'm getting like I feel really bad about not doing this thing, it's like, okay, what part of me is feeling guilty, shame, blame, and like, how do I just check in with the self? Like, is that true for me?
Yeah, so besides the meditation, the self-awareness, the grounding, what else have you like cultivated through this time to really keep you on track? Because I know for me, it's eating super clean. And we were talking to another friend that was saying, I think that's the difference for me as well, is like, I feel good inside. It's when we're bombarded by the media, bombarded with anxiety, fear, we have all this toxic energy around us, and then we're consuming the toxic food and fear and processed foods and things that don't agree with our body. It can really throw us off too. Like, I know if I've eaten something that's super sugary, I'm more apt to snap at someone, or
totally,
like, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that for me too. Like, I don't drink anymore. I've just decided drinking is work. But on the days like when I used to, and I'd wake up with a hangover, like if someone gets in, or I would even get mad at, like, things would start falling over and everything would piss me off, and I'd be like yelling profanities. But now I just notice, like, something will fall and I'll just laugh, and it's just like, oh my gosh, the old me used to get so mad when I would break something, or someone else broke something, or like things weren't going right. And now, like, and I'm not saying I'm a saint by any means, but it's been like, I can't even remember the last time I got really angry. And I think it's because, like you said, we're consuming really clean foods, and so we just feel like, I feel more in balance with things, and things don't seem as big a deal. I remember hearing a coach say this once, like, you can like, what to some people is a number 10, like 10 on the scale of stressfulness, becomes like a 2 for you. Like, oh, I can handle that, no problem. And it really has to do with, for me, with diet, but also with the meditation, and with the journaling, and with just going back again to self-awareness, and stop. I think the biggest message for me in all of this is stop focusing outwardly. You're never going to change anybody by focusing outwardly. Honestly, like, there's just, and I said this in the last podcast, but it just becomes this bumping up against a wall. Like, you're never going to stop the neighbor that likes to, you know, rev his engine in the morning by yelling at him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally.
In fact, they usually want to do it more.
They do.
And then you're like, oh no, what did I get myself into? And so, I mean, and this sounds kind of trite, but I really honestly think it works. And me and Sherry, when I had my roommate Sherry that was living here, we had this one guy that was going by on this, like, electric bike, but the electric part was like gas powered or something, and it sounded like an old, just an old thing. It didn't sound like the new electric bikes. And it was so loud, it was like, put, 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 put. And then, so she and I would get mad because we were out trying to garden, and then both of us agreed, we're like, every time we hear it, we're going to send him love. And then she said, I swear I was out there the other day, and it got silent as it went by our fence, and I kind of laughed. And now it's been 2 months, and I haven't heard him once. Like, I just started sending love every time he went by. I'm like, oh, that poor guy, he probably works all day, and he just needs to get out on his electric bike once evening hits. And, like, it really did change it for me. Like, I'm like, wow, I never hear him anymore. And I have a neighbor that plays a heavy metal band from his garage, and I swear I don't hear it. Like, I rarely, every once in a while I'm like, oh, that's Dave, and I just go, haha, I love Dave, because I do. He's a great guy. I mean, he plays death metal, but I love him. And so, you know, he's the nicest guy in the neighborhood. He would do anything for me. I guess I'm just focusing on the things I do have control over,
exactly,
instead of the things I don't. Like, and I love this. It's a line from Byron Katie. She says, there's your business, there's my business, there's God's business. If I'm minding your business, who's minding my business? Like, if I'm in everybody else's business, who's who's in charge of this? And I think that's just, I mean, if there's any message I could give today, is just we need to go back to ourselves.
And back to what we can control. And that's how we feel, our emotions, the meditation, all of that really helps. That keeps us more in control. And in control of what we're consuming externally as well. Like not going on Facebook if that's something that triggers you. Taking a social media detox, or going on a juice fast, or something that's going to make sure that you get grounded and centered in yourself. A reset.
Yeah, like a reset. And the other thing I think that I've been getting this message from the beginning, it's so funny, like when March hit and like all the stuff people started saying, you can't come to our city. Like we were driving to Sedona, Sherry and I, and Caitlin calls me and goes, turn around, they're closing the festival, the event. We were going to a yoga festival. And we were like, what? And like that was when the first oh my gosh, this is real, this is happening. And so what I was noticing is from then on, then I started sewing masks for a little while, and I would sit in the garage sewing, and suddenly this energy of sweatshop workers would come to me, these people that were living in slavery. And I was like, in the past, and this is one of the things I've done my whole life, is I would go, I don't want to think about that. Children abuse, children being stolen and abused and raped and all the horrible things that are happening to them. I don't want to think about that. Oh my God, no, that can't be happening. But what's happening now is we are being called to witness. Does it mean we have to go out and hunt people down? Not necessarily, unless that feels like your role. But the witnessing of it spiritually, it transmutes things. And what it does for us personally is when I start to witness my own emotions, oh, that makes me really uncomfortable. Wow. Instead of going, what can I eat? I'm like, okay, how long is it? And usually if you time it, I swear if you set a timer, it's maybe 5 minutes. And then you're on to something else. And so it's kind of like just sitting with that and not being afraid of your own emotions. And believe me, I'm the queen of I need to listen to something while I'm falling asleep because I don't want to be with my own thoughts. Because what if something scary comes up? What if some old memory comes up, or some thought about child sex slavery comes up? I don't think I can handle it. And so my higher self is calling me to witness. And that's what meditation is. It's just being the witness of the self. But now we're being called to witness for other people's pain. And for, the people that are so scared in the world that they're pulling their children away from us with their masks on as we walk by, just witnessing, wow, okay, love, that's what fear looks like. And that's it.
Yeah, because otherwise what comes to mind to me is you store that trauma somewhere. If you keep avoiding something that is scary for you or an emotion, then we're just going to store it for later.
Cancer.
And yeah, exactly. That's how these things come up in other ways. And so if we're able to just move through that in the moment, like you said, you witness it, and then it's it can just pass. Otherwise, if we keep resisting, it'll keep showing up in other ways. And hey, you need to see this, you need to see this. But just allow yourself to see it, feel it, and then let it go.
And it's just, I know, a lot of you guys probably watching or listening are on this page if you found us. But the whole thing that accidents are basically a wake-up call to life. So if you're meditating, if you're being the witness to your own life, every time you yell at someone, oh wow, what was that in me that I needed to do that? Versus, well, they were wrong and I needed to punish them. If we keep going back to the self, we're not going to need accidents in our lives. We're not going to need these huge wake-up calls because they usually start with a gentle whisper. I noticed for me, as my higher self has come online, what I call my higher self, my guides, my guardian that talks to me, we were talking about it. It starts to sound like a nagging. Even with recycling, it's don't you do it, and then you throw it in the trash, and then you're sitting there and you're it was so funny that you said, you're okay, you say it out loud, I heard you!
Okay, I'll go back.
I'll go back and put it in the right bin. And so, as you come online with this, it does get louder, and then you're online with it, and you don't need to have an accident. How many people have said cancer's the best thing that ever happened to me, or I got in a car accident, and I know this happened to Aubrey Marcus. He got in a car accident, and he was paralyzed for a while, and it was terrible, but his whole life transformed after that. So do we really want it to get that bad for us to wake up? And I think that's what's happening right now for me is I'm waking up even more. And I don't even know what that means, really waking up, other than saying, I know I'm more self-aware. I know I'm more aware that there's a higher power that I don't have control over everything, and that I want to be more loving and compassionate. And it just goes back to that. Like, how can I be? And I heard this once, and I love it. Someone said they had an NDE, near-death experience, and this has happened to more than one person. When they get to the other side, the question is, did you expand your capacity to love in this lifetime? I want my answer to be yes.
Definitely.
And I know it already is, but I just want to keep. And during this time is a great time to practice. I mean, we are given the best opportunity during 2020, and who knows if it's going to go on into 2021, to self-aware, self-reflect, and expand our capacity. We're giving a moment every day when someone cuts us off, or they give us a dirty look because we're not wearing a mask, or whatever it is, to expand our capacity to love in every moment. And I keep practicing, and I'm not perfect at it yet, for sure. I'm definitely not there yet, but I'm better.
Definitely.
Yeah. What else? Well, we were going to talk a little bit about like cultivating our reality, like how. Okay, so like thoughts creating reality, basically. So if we keep thinking, and we talked about this a little bit already, but if I keep running into these jerks, why is everybody such a jerk? And I keep hearing people say, humans are a-holes. And I'm like, okay, so you're in trouble because you're going to keep cultivating that.
Yeah.
Like, when we talk about our bubble. You want to talk about the bubble?
The bubble! Our bubble.
Yeah, I mean, like, I live in a bubble. And it's a bubble by design. Like, people say, how'd you get such a great life? And I'm like, well, it's by design. I mean, when I asked for a divorce, I had already started waking up at that point. I had gone raw, I had been vegan, my body was really clear, I've been doing all these cleanses, and suddenly I realized I was in a marriage that wasn't working. And I had a 2-year-old, and I was like, I could stay in this and make everybody else happy, the mother-in-law, my parents, my husband, and my kid. Like, everybody else will be fine, I'll just suffer. Or I can just create my reality and be like, this isn't working, and no, I have to go through a rough patch, which is also called the hero's journey, and like go through that time of everybody hating me, and like, oh well, I know I need to do this. And it wasn't an easy time. I swear that 5 years after my divorce were some of the worst 5 years of my life. But I'm on the other side of it now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I had stayed married, my life would be so different. And his life wouldn't be good. He's got a woman who loves him. He had another child since then. Like, his life is so much better without me. But sometimes it just takes the brave person. And so what I mean by like living in a bubble is I've cultivated my life here, this house, my life in Bend, my friends, my business partner, my friends that I spend time with. And I would rather have quality over quantity. I don't have a whole lot of friends anymore. And it's not that I've disenfriended everybody. It's just who I'm focusing on are people that I feel like match where I'm at energetically. Because we're all just vibration. And so if we keep bumping up against, like, listening to things, like Rush Limbaugh comes to mind. I don't even know if he's still on. But people would listen and get so angry, whether they agreed with him or disagreed. And I'm like, you're just bumping up against, like, you're on glass all the time. You're just like, this hurts, it hurts, it hurts. Let me talk about it to other people. Let me poison the world with my venom as I spew what I don't like about the world. And the bubble mentality, the creating your own reality bubble mentality is like, it's a crystal bubble. It's got lights. It's got beautiful people that come into my life. I have people over for dinner, and we make this amazing, healthy, vibrant food together. You know, I have like you coming to visit. I have things that just work for me, and I spend a lot more time alone. And I've actually cultivated the aloneness, which feels really good. I'd rather be alone and stay home and read a book than go to some event that I know is going to be mixed bag.
And I really like what you said about quality over quantity. We say that with our core group of friends all of the time, because during this time, it is a good opportunity to shed, because you're not obligated to do the things that, like, we all had these routines before this happened, and we were probably doing a lot of things that we didn't want to do. Like, there's a lot of things that you just end up doing, they're part of your routine, and they're draining on you. And now you're like, oh, I'm off the hook. I don't have to do these things. Like, who are you going to add back in? What are you going to add back into your life? And having friends drop off is okay. We're all growing on such different levels right now, and some people are growing super, super fast, and other people are stuck. And it's okay to be either one of those people if we're choosing to be around people that love and support us, and that we can show up for them just as much as they can show up for us. And I think that is the way to also feel the healthiest, most grounded. Like we say meditation and all this, but your connections, like we're supposed to be around people. Like if we weren't around people, life would be so much different. It would be very lonely and confusing. So when we're choosing to be around loving people, that is automatically going to just create expansion in your life as well.
Exactly. And then like exactly, I love that. And making wise choices. Like just like I wouldn't choose to drink wine anymore because it makes me hot and I wake up feeling, I don't sleep well and I wake up feeling groggy. I also don't choose to be around certain people that I feel hot, groggy, and not happy.
Sucking
and
energy.
Just energy draining. And there is something I think it's good to bring up is like vampiric energy. And Barbara Brennan wrote this book called Hands of Light. And I remember the first time I read it, it's all about like healing with your hands and healing energy. And she showed these pictures of how vampiric energy works. And honest to God, people don't know they're being vampires, but they can spike into you in certain ways. So if you feel drained after being with someone, then you've been vampired. In some, like it's like they could put on a vacuum hose, they could hook you. Hook you is usually like making you feel guilty for what you're not doing or for what you are doing. So just be aware of that. If someone posts on Facebook or even someone in your friends group or I should use the quote, air quotes, friends group, be aware of like, are they trying to hook me? Are they trying to vacuum hose? Vacuum hose is usually when they want something from you and they just want to keep taking, even if it's just information. If you start to feel drained, it's a sign like to lovingly say, you know what, I think I need to go. Like I gotta go, I'm feeling tired or whatever it is. But being true to yourself versus giving them all your energy and then not liking them or like feeling drained.
Yeah, and you can even put up your energy bubble around you. It doesn't have to be complicated. Like we don't have to be like these spiritual meditators to be able to put up our own bubble so that other outside energies don't have to affect us, and that we can choose to say no to the friend that isn't supporting our highest good.
Yeah, and what I've learned, and I've known it for a long time, but I just relearned from Dolores Cannon, I'm taking her course, is that the pyramid is the most protective energy that you can have. And it doesn't matter how many sides the pyramid has. Put yourself, like you're in a party or you're somewhere, you're in a car and suddenly like someone cuts you off. Put yourself with the car or by yourself, a pyramid where you're floating in it. And it could be white light, it could be violet light, but that's going to be the most protective thing you can do for yourself. And like you're going to notice that people don't even notice you as much if you're walking around with your pyramid. Like you're not getting dirty looks, you're not getting pushback from anybody because you've got your pyramid on. So I think that's a really good tool to remember, is maybe even put a little note somewhere in your car until you remember, or in your house. Pyramid. That's all it has to say is one word. And then you go, okay, and then you could keep that, you could set the intention to have it on all day. You don't have to remember to keep putting it on. Just say, pyramid for the day. Thank you. Done.
It's so simple.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be hard, like you said. And if you don't meditate, you wake up and you go, pyramid. Okay, I'm off. Or do one breath. Okay, go.
I love that so much.
And then also just that being alone, cultivating your aloneness.
Being okay with being alone.
Oh my God. It becomes delicious.
It's freedom. It's freedom to want to be with your own energy. Like, I crave it now. With my meditation time in the morning is like the juiciest. Like, oh, I get to listen to just me right now. Like, that is so special to be able to feel comfortable alone. And it takes time. Like, I get it. There's a lot of things. I've
met a lot of people, especially young people, that have lived at home their whole life, and then they got a boyfriend, or then they got married, which was me. They've never been alone, and so I can see. And I've dated people that have never been alone. They just go from one girlfriend to the next, and I understand that. And it's like I remember there's two people in my life that I've told, if you could just spend some time, like before you get the next girlfriend, before you get the next boyfriend, just spend some time with you. Like, what do you want? People don't even know what their own preferences are. And so what a beautiful gift we can give ourselves during this time. And if you're living with someone, like, have your separate rooms, somehow divide things up, and you can make it work. Like, can I have the bedroom from 4 to 5 this afternoon? I'm just going to close the door, put a little sticker on it, like, alone time. And so we need to ask for our needs to be met, I think, is the other thing when we're living with people. To make sure that we're getting our own needs met, because then we're better people.
Exactly. Like, you're worthy of having alone time, and you're worthy of asking for your needs to be met. Like if we continue letting people push us around, you were talking about this yesterday, like that is what you're going to continue to get. Like standing up for yourself, standing in your power. That's not even related to anything with this. This is just like life.
Yeah.
Knowing
but
how to stand in your
that's
power.
been a big lesson for me because I grew up with parents who I was not allowed to speak. Like I had throat problems my whole childhood and my tonsils removed and even in 20s, like inflamed throat. And once I started learning to speak my truth, which is asking for a divorce, which is telling a friend, this isn't working, can we take a break? Or like whatever it is. And sometimes you feel like you want to beat yourself up. Like, why am I, that was mean of me that I told her I didn't want to hang out with her or that I canceled, blah, blah, blah. Well, not really, because do we want to keep coming back life after life to learn the same lesson of speaking our truth? I mean, speaking our truth, it can be one of the most powerful things in a loving way. It doesn't have to be angry or mean. It can just be like, I'm just not feeling this, or I just need to take some time alone. And that's usually the best thing to say is, nothing to do with you, I'm going to just take the day to be alone. I'm going to go on a really long drive. I used to do that a lot when I was in a relationship living with someone. I would just go on a 4-hour drive. I mean, I wouldn't drive the whole time. You'd go park somewhere and just look at the views. Right? If you don't have room in your house, like go drive somewhere. It doesn't have to be far. Or go on a hike and sit up on a hill. We used to do that when we lived together in the same house in Arizona. Like I would get up in the morning and there was these rocks not far and I would go out there and meditate. Not to get away from you because you weren't even up yet, but it was just to have my own, feel my own energy. Like no one else in the house. Like what does that feel like?
Yeah, and that's when you can really listen to yourself.
Yeah, so I guess we're bringing this up because some people have never had that experience. So if that's you, like maybe just experiment with like going camping alone or doing something alone where you're just like, it's just you and you. No Facebook, no phones, no stuff. And then the other thing we had written down is silence, like the power of silence. And I know, because I'm going to do a confession, like I'm one of those people that's usually running a podcast or, oh, what's on YouTube? Oh, and it's most of the time, 99% of the time, I'm looking for spiritual stuff. Either that or I'm looking for like, what's the latest on the science on keto or the science on health? But, or playing music. And I'm like, now I love to sit in silence with meditation. I don't even do a guided one. Or I'm still a lot of times filling my time with noise, but I notice now, like I'll be in the car, I'm like, I don't need to play anything. I can just be in silence.
For me, it's productivity, like always needing to be productive. That is like, it's such a heavy load. And right now, especially, like we don't need to feel like we need to be productive 24/7 or even 8 hours a day. Like we have different work schedules now, most of us. So like not feeling the need to be producing something or learning something or consuming something. Like just being okay with doing nothing, being silent, being alone.
Just even laying on the couch and just like looking at...
Being human.
I haven't looked at the dots on the ceiling lately.
we rarely have a moment, or most people don't want to. Boredom.
No, they're bored.
Yes.
Well, they think they're bored. And that's my biggest, like, being a Gemini, like, I've gotten
being bored.
readings before, like, oh, you guys are so afraid of boredom, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. So, like, looking at that, like, that's another one of being a witness, like, oh, I'm afraid of being bored right now. Okay, what does that look like?
Because you can hear your own thoughts.
I'm not gonna die.
Yeah.
And so, so what about morning checklists? Like,
I think we talked about the gratitude and everything.
Yeah.
Our routines, I mean, we're all trying to create new routines right now, so that's something like if you are really good at latching onto a routine and that makes you feel good, like I've switched up my routine now because my partner's now, he doesn't go to work, so he's home all the time, so we're kind of intermingling these routines, and usually I'm alone all day or working or coffee shops or whatever, so just like cultivating a new routine that feels good for you. And I mean, it's always starting with meditation, gratitude, taking care of my vessel.
Yeah. And I think the reason I wanted to say morning routine too is because, like, for me, that's the time when, like, my second half of my day, usually after 4 or 5 p.m., is not very productive. It's not very, and I'm okay with that. So, like, my mornings are precious, especially, like, if I get up at 6 to 9 or whatever, like, okay, get my exercise done, get my meditation in, get my journaling done, or whatever it is that I really feel is precious to me as a human. And so for me, morning routine, some people say, oh, I'll wait and meditate later, and they never get around to it. So I think the first part of the day is just a really important time to pick maybe one or two things just to say, this is a non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable. I'm doing this every morning. And if you sleep with someone in the same room and you need to meditate and that's the only place to do it, set your alarm and get up 30 minutes before they do. I mean, whatever it takes. Yeah. Make at least one non-negotiable.
That's another way
just
to ask
for you.
your needs met.
Yeah, and then let them know, like, please sleep in because I need this time.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, well, thanks for joining us today. And remember, if you like this video or you like the podcast, please rate and review. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe and share it with your friends if any of this worked for you, and comment below. Please feel free to comment. Send in your comments, send in your requests, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, any questions too. We love to answer questions or give as many resources as we can.
Awesome. Thanks for joining.
Bye.